Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Quantum physics is a topic we often hear about. But do we really understand it? What if quantum physics is a science that also serves as a connection between the physical and the spiritual realms? Mission Evolution Radio TV show is coming to you around the world on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. With us this hour to explore quantum physics is a spiritual treasure, is Paul Levy. Paul is a pioneer in the field of spiritual emergence. In his private practice, Paul assists others who are also awakening to the dreamlike nature of reality. He has written 6 books. His latest book is a new and expanded version of The Quantum Revelation, Awakening to the Dreamlike Nature of Reality. Levy is the founder of Awakening in the Dream Community and has been a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner for 40 years. His website, awakeninthedream.com. Paul, thanks for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy to be invited. Thank you, really.
Well, it's wonderful having you back on the show. We always have such fun. Now, Paul, I understand that you're not a physicist. So how did you become interested in the topic of quantum physics?
Yeah, no, I'm totally not a physicist. And basically, over 40 years ago, I had a quantum shift in my life where all of a sudden I was inhabiting this universe that simulated the previous universe I'd grown up in, but couldn't be more different, particularly in the realm of the possible had expanded to unimaginable degrees. So I was having this profound awakening to the dreamlike nature is what I would call it. And it was very unsettling. And as I began to integrate my experience, and then I became familiar with quantum physics, I began to realize, oh my God, quantum physicists are describing and mapping the very universe that I had found myself inhabiting. And so that really, really helped me because everybody was telling me I was crazy and all that. And I knew I wasn't. So it really helped me to contextualize my experience when I came across quantum physics.
So what would you describe what a quantum shift is that you're talking about here?
Yeah, well, in quantum physics, they talk about having, quantum leaps or quantum jumps or quantum shifts, where all of a sudden I had, just as an ordinary person who had been programmed and conditioned by our society and had assumed certain things were true, and in particular, the idea of that this universe existed objectively separate from myself. That was just an unquestioned assumption. And all of a sudden, something happened. I got hit by a bolt of lightning inside of my brain, not from the sky. And I began to recognize the dreamlike nature of reality, that we were interconnected and interdependent, that I didn't exist as a separate self, that other people weren't separate, that we were all part of one whole seamlessly interconnected quantum system. And so that's what I mean when I said I had a quantum jump, in that all of a sudden it seemed it looked just like the previous universe, but it couldn't have been more different because I had seen through the imagination, that I existed as a separate self, which I don't. There's none of us who do. And that I saw through the illusion that this universe existed objectively and separate from myself. Because what quantum physics in essence had discovered and proven is that the act of observing this universe actually influences the universe observed. And that's a description of a dream. And that's why I keep on circling back to the dreamlike nature of reality.
So how old were you when this happened and what was going on in your life?
Yeah, I was 24 and I was suffering from an over the top, incredible emotional trauma at the hands of my father, who wound up being a criminal and a psychopath. And I was the only child who was the recipient of him acting out like, everybody acts out their unhealed abuse on the next of kin. And my father did it in a way that really changed my life, and that I went from a happy, healthy, normal person to all of a sudden being confronted with this overwhelming suffering. And I dealt with it by going into my mind and trying to get to the real root of what was happening. And so that was the context in which I had the awakening that changed the entire trajectory of my life. And it's given me the authority to write my books, type of thing, you know?
So, in indigenous cultures, in order to be a shaman or a medicine person, there's these really horrible, if you will, initiations people go through, being buried in the sand up to here and left
Yeah,
overnight.
yeah.
It goes on and on and on. But it is a form of shattering, and that opens them to a reality that most people aren't aware of. Was it similar to that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was totally shattered. I was, over the top, suffering from trauma. And, and I had no idea about shamanism. And the shaman is the wounded healer, is the creative artist, is the storyteller. And so I had no idea about any of that. And all of a sudden, at a certain point, something happened based on this incredible trauma and suffering. And over the course of time, I began to understand it was like I had gotten enlisted into a deeper shamanic initiatory process. And I should just point out, you'd have to be absolutely insane to choose to become a shaman, because you have no idea. It's unimaginable the suffering that's involved. And what I had to go through and what I still go through as far as integrating what I had realized, or what I'm realizing, and what I had encountered, particularly the evil and the dark side of reality. And but the shaman typically is somebody who gets called by the spirit, and that's really what happened to me.
So it was kind of an initiatory thing for you, wasn't it?
Oh, totally. No, it was totally initiatory. And I'm pointing out that, the shamanic archetype is the major archetype that's activated in the collective unconscious of our species, that we're all being called to be the shaman, or to become our own shaman, or to become the shaman of the planet. And like I'm saying, the shaman is the wounded healer. So, and that archetype is the primary archetype that's activated in the unconscious, in that we all are wounded by life. We're all, like, shattered or traumatized. And yet how we carry that, we either identify ourselves as being wounded, in which case we then need somebody else to play the shaman, or we can carry that wound in a way where it becomes a portal to access our creative gifts.
So
And that's
our shattering becomes the cracks through which the light can shine.
exactly like Leonard Cohen, sings about. And that's exactly right. And that's why I'm continually talking about that the real medicine for what ails our species is to access the creative spirit within us.
So, where do you get your information about quantum physics at this point? I mean, we've been talking about the esoteric nature of it, but as far as the mainstream information about quantum physics, where do you find that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm a nerd, in that I like to study and read books. So, I've read every book I can get my hands on for years on quantum physics. But then it was like I was having my own subjective experience of the quantum nature of reality, of the dreamlike nature of reality. Because quantum physics, you see, there's not any controversy at all. It's the greatest discovery ever in the history of our world in the realm of science. That there's no debate about. The controversy is, what does it mean?
It's a real
Okay.
game changer anyway, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, even Einstein, who is one of the founding fathers, who could never embrace fully what it was revealing, because he was still attached to that there was an objective world outside of ourselves. That was the whole fundamental, like, springboard of science. But he actually said that quantum physics is so uncommonly important, and this is a quote, it should be everyone's concern. So it's not some sort of esoteric, abstract thing. No, it absolutely interfaces with our day-to-day lives and with who we are. And it greatly behooves us to have the realization of what it's showing to us. And it's actually the medicine. Quantum physics is the medicine for the disease, for the, I call it a mind virus that is afflicting our species. Quantum physics is the revelation that's offering us the medicine, and I can explain that.
Well, we'll have to do that in the next segment. But it sounds like quantum physics is the key to personal and planet-wide evolution.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is showing us the incredible creative power that we have intrinsic to our nature, that we're using every moment, whether we know it or not. And it greatly serves us to add consciousness to it, to know it, because quantum physics basically shattered the old conception that this universe existed objectively separate from us, which is just an idea in our head with no correlate in reality. Quantum physics has proven that the way we observe the universe influences the universe. That's a description of a dream. And that means that the act of perception, of observation, is creative, that we are participating in the creation of the universe each and every moment.
Well, that also makes the scientific method a little iffy, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, what Einstein was saying is that if quantum physics is true, and it's never been proven to not be true, I mean, it's the most successful theory of all time, then Einstein says that's the end of science. We have to revision a whole new science based on what quantum physics is showing us.
Well, we will revision this whole new science or part of it on the other side of a station break. Paul and I will return very shortly, so don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Can quantum physics offer a cure for madness? With us this hour discussing quantum physics and the evolution is Paul Levy. Paul is the author of The Quantum Revolution, Awakening to the Dreamlike Nature of Reality. Paul, again, sorry, I think it's Levy instead of Levy. I always do that to
Yeah,
you.
that's
So
okay.
sorry. Um, if we're living in a reality that is actually inaccurate, what does that do to everything that we think we know?
Yeah, well, it puts into question, like the quantum physicists, the founding fathers, when they realized what they were tapping into when they discovered the quantum, it was like the rug had gotten pulled out from under them. They had no place to stand, and it really brought into question, like, who am I? Because quantum physics, by proving empirically again and again, it's a nonsensical idea that the world exists objectively separate from us. There's another half of that realization, and that is what happens to me as a subject if there's no objective world. Well, I, as a subject, I need an object to be in relationship to in order to be a subject. If there's no object, then who am I? So those two imaginations, the imagination of an objective world, which doesn't exist, and the imagination that I exist as a separate self, which doesn't exist, they in a way reciprocally reinforce each other. When you see through that illusion, it floods light on the question of, wait a second, who am I? And that's where quantum physics has promoted itself to be a spiritual path.
It's also would indicate to me that it's time that the buck stops here. When we're seeing things as separate, we don't have to take responsibility for our part in creating them. But now, from what you're saying, if quantum physics indeed is telling us that we are all part of the whole and everything we think, do, or say impacts that whole, all of a sudden responsibility takes on a whole new level, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, there's no one else to blame. We are, participating in the evocation and the conjuration and the creation of our universe each and every moment. We ourselves, by the way we interpret the ink blot of the universe and place meaning on our experience, we are creating our experience of ourselves and of the world. There's no one else doing that to us. We are doing that. And that really puts a great responsibility on us.
So, what where does that put us with group agreement? Because in the past we've had agreement that this little limited reality that we're subject to was the reality, and now this is being blown wide open. So, where does that put group agreement?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's pointing out, like quantum physics points out, this universe is like when I'm in Portland, Oregon, where it rains a lot and there are rainbows quite often. And that rainbow, there's no objective rainbow. The rainbow is a coming together of three factors of consciousness, of water, and light, and of the mind. Consciousness is the mind, and light and water. And then we have an image of the rainbow, but there's no objective rainbow out there. And quantum physics is saying that this physical world is like that rainbow. It doesn't exist objectively. It exists just like a rainbow does, as in, inside of our mind. And we each are seeing our own private rainbow. There's no one objective rainbow or one objective world that we're seeing. And we have an agreement so we can share our experience together. But the idea is that we're each seeing our own private cosmos, and there's a way of navigating that creates this utility and is convenient. But the idea is we've been programmed to have a certain way of seeing, that we've been conditioned, that limits us and limits our creativity and closes our heart. And quantum physics is offering us the revelation because it's showing us that we're not separate, that we're interconnected. A quantum universe is a seamlessly interconnected whole. There's no separate parts interacting. It's one whole universe.
What about the 100th monkey? So it's like, we all know about the 100th monkey theory, right? It took a certain amount of monkeys to do the behavior on one island before it suddenly magically started showing up on the other island. As we're going through this evolution of consciousness from thinking of ourselves as separate to recognizing our interconnectedness, is there a breakover point to where it'll be more common for people to easily
Yeah.
recognize this because people have gone before that see it?
Yeah. Well, in other words, as more and more people really become quantum physicized, is the way I would say it, in their consciousness, and understand and see through the lens of what quantum physics is showing us, that we're not separate. There are no separate things. There are no things at all. It's all one quantum interconnected system. There's a non-local field which we are expressions of, in which we're contained. It's the point of view of wholeness. As each one of us really integrates that perspective in ourselves, that goes viral, that transmits through the collective unconscious of our species, because we're not separate. And at a certain point, just like the 100th monkey phenomena, that becomes the prevailing viewpoint for sure.
So, where's the scientific proof of all this? It seems like a lot of it's conjecture. So
Yeah.
where's the proof of this?
Yeah. No, it's no conjecture. This is no conjecture. This is empirically proven. It's the most proven and provable scientific theory of all time. It's never been proven to even be an iota wrong in any way. And so, yeah, the question is, and where's the scientific proof? The question is, like, what do we do with what it's showing us? Because in my work, I'm pointing out that quantum physics is like a spiritual treasure. It's offering us free of charge this unbelievable, this revelation that, I mean, it's already changed the course of history with all the technology it's brought in. But the people who really study this stuff say that's just the low-hanging fruit. The real benefit of quantum physics is how it's going to change our consciousness. It's going to change our thinking. And we're at the very beginning stages of that.
Yeah, it sounds like the proof is still in the pudding, though. We can think about it, we can see it, we can theorize about it. It's a theory, but we aren't necessarily, certainly not en masse, living it right now.
Yeah, well, the quantum physicists, the founding fathers are saying it's like we still haven't found the central idea. And they think, again and again, they're saying in different ways, the central idea, it's going to be so simple that we could be able to express it on a t-shirt in like 5 words or something like that. And they say it's like if you've never seen an automobile and you're in a forest and you come across an automobile, and you turn on the signals or the lights or the radio or the heater, but you still haven't figured out what is an automobile really about. Quantum physicists are saying that we still haven't found the central idea. And here I am, and I'm not a physicist at all, and I'm saying, oh, I can offer, it's clear what this, and they're all saying when we see the central idea, we're going to say to ourselves, how could we have been so blind? And I'm pointing out the central idea is, it is literally showing us that we are having a collectively shared dream. Quantum physics has empirically proven beyond the slightest shadow of a doubt that we're having a collective dream. The problem is that the typical corporate, academically trained quantum physicist is not prepared to recognize what is being revealed. They're not prepared to recognize the dreamlike nature. Not being a physicist and being a dreamer, I'm like coming in and saying, look, it's literally showing us that we are having a collectively shared dream, that this universe is manifesting the way it is because we are co-dreaming it into materialization based on our unconscious programming.
If indeed it is a collective dream and we create our own collective dream, that means it's very, very changeable. How
Totally. The greatest discovery of physics, of quantum physics, one of the current quantum physicists says the greatest discovery of all of physics in the 20th century was the malleability of our universe, that it's not written in stone, that it's malleable and plastic, and it's a function of how we dream it.
that seems like it'd be impossible to study. It's in this form, and you look at it a little while, and just looking at it changes it.
Yeah, but that's the observer effect. The act of looking at the universe is in a participatory active act that's literally changing the very universe that you're observing. And that's a description of a dream.
So if we have, let's go with the dream idea. If we have interactive dreams, okay, and we can change where the dream is going because we're interactive within it. Is the same true of reality?
Yeah, but then the question is, who's the dreamer? If you think, oh, I as a conscious ego, as a separate self, am dreaming and I want to dream that I become a millionaire, or no, that's the dream of the smaller self. You know, what quantum physics is actually showing us is our nature, is who we are, you know. And because quantum physics was trying to understand what is the microstructure, what are the building blocks of this physical universe, and as it went down and down in scale, it didn't find anything, of matter, physical matter. It found mind, it found consciousness, and that it found that this universe is quantum on all scales, both in the microstructure and in the macrostructure and everywhere in between, including us. We are quantum entities in the flesh. And, we're at the beginning. This is such a radical discovery that they say it typically takes centuries to integrate what it's revealing to us. We're right at the very, very beginning, but it's already changed the course of history. And like I'm saying, it's going to change. I mean, it's the greatest discovery that there's ever been in the realm of science. And
So
we don't even really understand what it's showing us yet.
when did this discovery start? Who
It
really was
started
the
about a hundred years ago in the early 1900s. And there was a generation of these genius physicists who were all like plugging into it. And and I'm pointing out that the discovery of quantum physics is a spiritual treasure that we dreamed into our world and into our minds to potentially help us to awaken to our nature, to potentially make us conscious of our creative agency and power in a way that can help us to avert the incredible myriad catastrophes that we are conjuring up.
well,
Quantum physics is freely offering us the medicine.
we're going to have to conjure on the other side of a station break. We'll be right back, so you stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. How do you study something you can't see? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing the esoteric nature of quantum physics is Paul Levy. His website, awakeninthedream.com. Paul, you said that the quantum level is unseen. It's esoteric. It's spiritual, if you will. So how can we study it if we can't see it?
Yeah. Well, it's very much like there's no one who's ever seen an atom, but we can infer the existence of an atom by its effects in the same way that no one's ever seen an archetype, but the archetype expresses itself via images and has certain effects. And we experience that, in a direct way. And we can infer there is something, in a sense, higher dimensional that isn't physical, that we can't quantify, and that helps us to really contextualize our experience, and so quantum physics, what I'm pointing out, just in my work again and again, and what I've realized deeper and deeper in my life, is that it's by being the greatest discovery ever in science, it's equivalent to when the Buddha had the realization of our Buddha nature or our Christ nature, and it's really that profound of a thing. But when more and more of us actually take it in and embody it, it becomes contagious and it can go viral and change our world.
So if it is, why now? Why is it happening now?
Yeah,
We've been
I
around
can
a long
answer.
time.
Yeah, I can answer that for sure, because it brings me back to the idea of quantum physics is a spiritual treasure. So, every spiritual tradition I know has the idea that there are these spiritual treasures hidden, encoded within the fabric of the universe that get discovered at exactly the right moment when they're needed. And I'm very familiar. I'm a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner, and in the tradition that I do practice in, they have a highly developed this lineage, and it's the spiritual treasure lineage. It's called Terma, and Terma are they're conceived, and it's not just a fairy tale. Scholars write books about this. That there are these hidden treasures that are hidden and coded in the multidimensional fabric of the universe, including within our minds, that right at the moment when they're needed will be discovered. They're like alarm clocks that go off, helping us to wake up. And a way of understanding this is just like think about our unconscious. When we get off balance and one-sided, the unconscious compensates that one-sidedness by sending us a dream. And the dream speaks in the language of symbols. And quantum physics is a purely symbolic procedure. Okay. So the idea being that similar to how a symbol will manifest in a dream to bring us back to to being in balance, we as a species have gotten so off balance that we have dreamed up the revelation of quantum physics into our world and into our minds to bring us back into balance. And but of course, everything depends on if we recognize what it's revealing to us.
Let's talk about wetiko. Okay, you've done a lot of study and a lot of work with the concept. Would you describe what it is and how it applies here?
Yeah. Well, wetiko is a mind virus. It's a Native American term, and it's a collective psychosis that actually it's the diagnosis for what our species is suffering from and playing out in the world. And it's basically we've entranced ourselves by the creative genius of our own mind in a way where we've fallen asleep to our nature. And Watiko, it works through the projective tendencies of the mind such that we sort of hypnotize ourselves by our own creative agency. And quantum physics is the medicine for that, because quantum physics is actually, you see, just to connect it to the spiritual treasure idea, I'm pointing out that quantum physics is a modern day analog to a spiritual treasure, right? That it's actually helping us to wake up and remember who we are and to reconnect with our soul, with our heart, and with our creative agency and power. And by doing that, we dispel the pernicious effect of the Watiko mind virus.
So there's a certain amount of greed and narcissism wrapped up in the wetiko, isn't there?
Totally. Oh, absolutely. Greed and narcissism. And, in Buddhism, they talk about the three poisons. It's, the embodiment, the real essence of the Watiko mind virus, that is the psychospiritual dis-ease that's afflicted our species, is ignorance, is not knowing who we are, is being in a dream and thinking it's real. And being that we're in a dream, as soon as we hold the viewpoint that the dream is objective and real, it has no choice but to manifest that way, giving us all the evidence, which we then interpret as, oh, now I have all the proof I need, confirming my viewpoint that the universe I'm in is separate and objective and real. So we get even more fixed in seeing it that way. It's a feedback loop that self reinforces itself. And what I'm describing is that we've hypnotized ourselves by our own creative genius in a way that's suffocating us.
But
That Watiko in quantum physics is offering us the medicine to see through that.
so if wetiko is on one side of the scale and quantum physics is on the other side of the scale, a dose of quantum physics will bring everything closer to center. However, what happens if quantum physics goes to its extreme and becomes imbalanced? Is that not possible right now? You're
Yeah,
saying we dream
totally.
it up. We dream
Totally.
this
No,
all
there
up.
are people I know who will use the revelation that is quantum physics to justify their unconsciousness. I know people who, instead of following what's happening in the world, are like, oh, everything's true and not true, like quantum physics says. So how can you ever know what's true? And they're justifying their ignorance, So anything like quantum physics, if it gets in the wrong hands, could be used to destroy our species, like anything. It has a positive, like any archetype, Jung points out, has a positive and a negative pole. It's bipolar, not in the pathological sense, but it's a superposition of states, having just like wetiko. Wetiko is the source of the greatest evil that we are playing out in our world, both individually, in relationship, and collectively on the world stage. And encoded, hidden within the wetiko mind virus is the most incredible blessing. It's helping us to wake up. It's a quantum phenomena. It has both the highest, the deepest darkness and the highest light encoded within it. And how wetiko will manifest depends on us, depends on if we recognize what it's showing us. That's the key. The quantum physics is a revelation. Wetiko is a revelation through the darkness. How the revelation will manifest. Is it gonna, if we don't recognize it, it's gonna kill us. If we recognize what it's revealing to us, it's going to awaken us. The choice is ours.
If we go too far in the quantum direction, doesn't it lead to madness as well?
No, if we go too far one-sided, like people who think, oh, this is a dream, so I can jump off a building and fly. Yeah, that's not to realize what quantum physics is showing us. That's to, in your language, I think, take it too far and go mad. That's no, we have to integrate, the quantum universe, the dreamlike universe, and this dreamlike universe is one aspect of it. Is in Buddhism, there's relative reality, there's absolute reality, which is the quantum. Then there's relative reality, and Buddhism is pointing out they're not separate. They interpenetrate. You can't just ignore one and pretend, oh, everything's a dream and we're all enlightened and all that. No, that's to be out of balance. You have to integrate the opposites.
Instead of, or in addition to integrating the opposites, what about triangulation and bringing the heart into the picture?
Yeah. Well, the point is that when you have the realization of what quantum physics is revealing to us, i.e., that we're not separate, that we're interconnected, that there is no separate self, the energetic expression of that realization is compassion, is open heart of love. In Buddhism, it's called the precious bodhicitta. His Holiness Dalai Lama calls it the good heart. And that's, think about what's playing out in our world. So many people are just becoming numb and zombified or automatons, and they're disconnected from their soul, they're disconnected from their heart. But to have an open heart, to cultivate awareness, in indigenous cultures talk about that's to be this human being, like that's to really accomplish, to actualize being a human being. And a human being, our nature is love, is compassion, and quantum physics can actually help us to realize that.
But if we go back to where we started this whole discussion, that the trauma and the pain and the damage of this world shuts down our hearts. So, so doesn't that give the Watiko a nice, rich loam to grow in?
Yeah, no, absolutely, totally. That's the fertile soil for Wetiko to take root in. But that trauma is a quantum phenomena, because the pathology of trauma is the repetition compulsion. That is what makes trauma like an illness. Is that by the way of trying to heal the trauma, we recreate the very trauma we're trying to heal from in an infinitely self-perpetuating feedback loop. The
Kind
point
of like
is,
you get stuck in the story kind of thing.
yeah, you can get stuck in the story and it becomes tragic. But the point is, encoded in that compulsion to repeat the trauma, we are actually trying to consciously experience something that we weren't able to experience in the moment of trauma, because it was so overwhelming that we split. We disassociated. And that is the pathology of trauma. But what I'm pointing out is that encoded in that, in the repetition compulsion, is the medicine. We're actually trying to consciously experience ourselves in a way we weren't able to in the moment of trauma. And that's the, in a way, that's the remembering. the retrieving of our soul, the integration, the connecting with our nature, with our whole nature.
Well, it's again time for another station break. Please stay with us as Paul and I continue to explore the many mysteries of quantum physics. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org, and we're coming to you on the X Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. Quantum physics, spirituality, or science? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Paul Levy. His website, awakeninthedream.com. Paul, as we've been speaking, it occurs to me that quantum physics is a major threat to science simply because the existence of that kind of unity and our influence on the things that we're observing or believing in, it takes a scientific theory and throws it out the window. So how is that going to mesh? We want to prove things, and yet we're disproving the very thing that we've been using to prove them. Where do we get there? Where do we go from here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, quantum physics, has proven that the universe that we've been studying before quantum physics came on the scene didn't even exist, that there was no such thing. That was why it was like an incredible trauma. I actually coined an acronym, QPIT, quantum physics induced trauma, that the founding fathers were so shocked by what they had realized. They were literally saying, I wish I had never gone into physics, type of thing. And,
Well, when your whole reality crumbles out from underneath you because you've been seeking the truth, that can be pretty shocking, can't it?
yeah. But I point out that it's actually the best news, like a modern day quantum physicist, Christopher Fuchs, calls quantum physics. He goes, quantum physics makes life worth living. And another quantum physicist I know says, when I get depressed, I have two go-tos. I listen to Beethoven and I study quantum physics, in that it's so unbelievably inspiring. Because if I could just point out that what they discovered, the elementary particles, the very substance of what this physical world is made, they call them elementary particles, is one name for it. And they realized they don't exist as any stuff and any, matter, but they exist in a state of potentiality in any and every way they could ever exist. They exist up until the moment that we observe these elementary particles, and then they actualize into one specific manifestation, and all the other possibilities, they vaporize into parallel worlds. And then that very process happens again the next nanosecond. And the point is, and this isn't me, this is the most hardcore of the scientists are saying this. They say the point is that even if something is highly ridiculously improbable, it could happen this very next moment. And what that means is so profound, because the idea that our species could actually awaken in this very moment, quantum physics is saying that's within the realm of the possible. And if you're not envisioning that, then I would say you're actually part of the problem.
So what changes will a widespread understanding of quantum physics bring to our culture?
How would that change the culture? Is that what you're
Mhm,
asking?
mhm.
Yeah. Well, it would, on the one hand, it's already changed the culture just, technologically wise, but it would actually, the whole key is not to get new facts, but to have the new ways of thinking about the facts that we're discovering. So that's really a very interesting question of, imagine how, when enough of us in our world actually become awake to the quantum nature of our universe, how would that change things? And I would say, well, I imagine we would be discovering that we're not separate, that we depend on each other for our well-being. So we actually, in a sense, get in phase with each other through the heart of love. And actually, instead of focusing, outside of ourselves, or focusing on the dark, which in some way feeds it. Yeah, it's important to see, the shadow that's playing out in our world. But then we discover, as sovereign beings, we can actually focus on creating the world we want to live in, because we've tapped into our creative agency. And when enough of us are able to do that, and plug in and get in phase and in sync with each other, we can change the waking dream we're having, which is, that's not woo woo. That's not new age magical thinking. That's actually what all of this is about. And what that means is that quantum physics is inviting us to consciously step into participating in our own evolution.
Well, I like that part. It's that time, Paul, in the show, and I get to ask you, what's your mission?
Yeah, well, my mission, I feel like I've been gifted this revelation, and it's been over 40 years, and I'm still integrating what was shown to me, because stuff began happening in my life that was physically impossible, or so I thought. Stuff that only could happen in dreams. And of course, I was telling people because I was so excited, and they all thought I was crazy. But as I've more and more integrated, I become more skillful in how to transmit what has been shown to me. And so my mission is to try to, in a way, turn other people onto our intrinsic creative genius and power for creating our experience of the world and ourselves. That is really my mission.
That's certainly a worthy one, particularly given our times. Right now, we're looking at quantum physics as the greatest revelation, okay, that we know. But things continue to evolve. What do you suppose will be next?
Yeah. Well, as quantum physics gets more integrated into our minds, and it becomes more and more like the typical way of seeing things, instead of like the Newtonian way, which, it's really like our species has fallen under a spell. I mean, that's a way. And these quantum physicists they're talking about, they use language like, like spells and fairy tales and becoming like, it's exactly the language they're using. So what I imagine is what comes next as our species, as it breaks out of the spell, then we can funnel our creative genius, instead of investing in creating more powerful these weapons of how to kill each other. We can invest our resources in creating true culture that supports all of our highest unfoldment. And quantum physics can actually help us to do that in ways that are unimaginable.
I can't help but sit here as we're having this discussion and think, we're so far away from that. I mean, it's like it's such a quantum jump, if you will, from the reality that we've all been enmeshed in to this new one being offered, if what you're saying is in fact true, by the quantum revolution, if you will. How are we going to, and how long do you think it'll take before? I mean, everything we do is based on this illusion, if you will. How can we step out of the illusion, and how long will it take?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the fact is, it can be this very moment. It can be, in his work, Jung talks about the individual is the carrier of life, that any one individual having realization of the quantum could be the very energy that changes the entire non-local field and the collective unconscious of our species. And I would say it really serves us to imagine in that way. So yeah, I get things are really dark and and all that. And it seems like, oh my God, for the rest of our lives, for centuries, we'll be going through this. That's one quantum possibility. But another quantum possibility is in this moment, any one of our viewers or our listeners having the realization of what we're talking about could change everything.
There's a shattering involved. How long did it take you to get over the shattering, or have you even gotten over it?
Yeah, no, I'm still a work in process. I mean, I was so completely shattered, both by the abuse and the evil that came through and that, deeply just traumatized me. But I was also just completely shocked when I realized that this world that we live in, when it was shown to me, oh, this is just a dream. This is not metaphorically sort of like a dream, but this is nothing other than a collective dream that we are dreaming up moment by moment to materialization. That itself was another shock. And so, I'm continually, integrating, the trauma of both of those shocks. And that's why the importance of me, if I didn't find my creative voice, I would have been in deep trouble. And, being creative is the medicine, and quantum, for the mind virus. And being creative is what quantum physics is showing us, is that we are creative beings each and every moment. That's in essence, that's the fundamental revelation of quantum physics. It's showing us our creative nature.
And hasn't our creative nature been hijacked by the system?
Totally. That's the mind virus, where the mind virus has hijacked our own creative genius. It's colonized our mind. It's set up a shadow government within our psyche. It dictates to the ego to serve its needs instead of our own. And that's the mind virus. And that's why I'm continually pointing out that when you understand quantum physics as a revelation and you take in what it's showing you, it dispels all those negative effects of the mind virus and connects us with our nature. Because it's such a cliche, to connect with your nature. Well, what is your true nature? Your true nature, by its nature, is creative. And so when you realize your nature, you embody and express yourself creatively. And the more you do that, the deeper you realize your nature in a positive feedback loop that creates light upon light.
Well, unfortunately, Paul, time flies and we're out of it. But thank you so much for joining us on the show again.
Oh, it's my honor. Really, thank you so much for the invite.
Our guest this hour has been Paul Levy. Paul has written 6 books, his latest, a new and expanded version of the Quantum Revelation, Awakening to the Dreamlike Nature of Reality. To find out more about Paul, where you can get his books and all he has to offer, visit his website, awakeninthedream.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy our past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. But please be sure to join me right here next time. This mission will continue, bringing information, resources, and support to our rapidly evolving world.